First time we have such a hangar talk, such an aviation event in Saudi Arabia, and we're so honored to have you be a part of it for the first time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Captain Doug, we would love to know, you are in so many different industries. You're in business, you're in engineering, you're in aviation. We would love to know, how did it happen, and how did your love for aviation in particular come to life?
Well, when I was a young teenager, my father bought a Piper Super Cub, and that event changed my life forever. I've been just passionate about bush flying and Super Cubs and modifying airplanes. Just went all in. Got my soloed when I was 16. When I was
16 years old.
That was when you could legally do it in the States. But I started flying when I was like 10. My dad would go out with me all the time, and just overwhelmed me. It just made a blasting impact on my life.
I can only imagine. And when you're in such a young age and you're trying to figure out what you want to do in your life and what you want to major in, what did you focus to major in when you went to college?
Well, prior to being enthused in airplanes, I was a really poor student. I lacked motivation, lacked desire, just wanted to screw around all the time. But airplanes gave me direction and gave me a purpose. So I majored in mechanical engineering in college and always was thinking about modifying these Piper Cubs. They were just a magical machine to me and just fascinated me.
The Piper Cubs in particular, and that was the plane your father had, right?
Yeah, and that's the plane I have, and that we used at the Ultima Thule there at Paul Claus's lodge, and I fly for him a few weeks a year just for fun.
And what you both have in common, along with Captain Paul, is that you love bush flying.
Yeah. Also, I think both of our fathers had these airplanes, so we were introduced at a very, very young age. Very, very fortunate to do that. Unlike Paul, I don't live in Alaska. I live in the lower 48 in Oregon, and we don't have the access to the terrain and the bush flying scene. So we always, from the lower 48, looked to Alaska as the holy grail of where bush pilots go. And that is the case. There's no doubt. So I started venturing up to Alaska after college and met Paul at a very young age, even as a teenager, I think. And he's always been my mentor. In the United States, Paul Claus is kind of a legend.
Even here, he is a legend.
Well, he's more so in the United States. All this lower 48, we call it lower 48, pilots aspire to be like Paul Claus. And I remember watching a video of Paul landing on a glacier on wheels, which is astonishing. Yeah, and so one time in Alaska, I just stopped at his lodge and said, "Hey, Paul, I want to land on ice. This is amazing." And to my surprise, 10 minutes later, we're in the air going to a glacier to land on it.
So typical of pilots, right? I want to do this. You know what? Get on the plane. Let's just go and do it.
I mean, I had the picture of my airplane on the ice, that very first landing in my office, all blown up.
Oh, wow. I'm sure it was an incredible experience and an incredible memory. Captain Doug, you are passionate about bush flying, and you're also a mechanical engineer, and you're into engineering, and you're also into inventions. I would love to hear from you, and I'm sure all of our audience would also love to know, what are the main attributes to a bush plane from an engineering perspective?
Well, I have a slide that shows all that, but really it's wing loading and power loading is kind of one of the major things. So wing loading is the weight of the aircraft divided by the area of the wing. So you want a low wing loading. You want a very light aircraft with a big wing. And that allows the airplane to stall at a very low speed. And that's critical to bush flying. Bush flying, you want to land in a very short distance. So you want to fly at a very slow speed so that you have a lot less energy to stop. Another thing is power loading. So power loading is the weight of the aircraft divided by the horsepower. To get off short, take off short distance, you want to accelerate the aircraft very quickly to get to flying speed as soon as possible. And also you want that excess power to clear obstacles that are in the takeoff path or the takeoff departure path, like trees, obstacles, rocks, what have you.
Well, I mean, from an engineering perspective as well, you also invented multiple inventions when it comes to aviation. One of the main items I read about was the Keller flaps.
Yeah, and of all my stories, that goes back to Paul. Paul has an aircraft called the de Havilland Otter, and that Otter has what's called double slotted flaps. So they call them vanes, and what happens is you can get these vanes to stagger and not stall. A Super Cub has a plain flap, which is very crude, and it stalls out at a very low deflection angle. But if you have these double slotted flaps, you can keep the air attached and it'll create more lift.
So, in particular, what are the Keller flaps focused on?
So, my main reason for doing this was, if you watch Paul fly his Otter, you see that he takes off and lands at a very, what we call a low deck angle. He kind of levitates, where most airplanes have to rotate and go up.
Yes.
So one of the real critical things about bush flying is over-the-nose visibility. You're landing in a spot that's remote that most likely you haven't even seen on the ground. You're viewing this from the air at 40 or 50 miles an hour. So that's one big critical part of bush flying is the judgment of the landing zone. It just takes years and years of expertise to do this. Paul is excellent at it. I don't fly as much as Paul, so I'm more of a follower. I notice that I repair my airplane a lot less if I follow. But this Otter would take off and land at such a low deck angle that you could see, and I wanted to emulate that for the Super Cub. Because the Super Cub, to get to fly low or slow, you have to tip the nose up, and then you lose that forward visibility. So I wanted to keep the slow speed and have that forward visibility. So that's the driving force of that whole project.
When you first started aviation, and when you first, I mean, you soloed at a very young age, considerably. The minute it became legal for you to solo and for you to even get your license, you went right for it.
Oh yeah, I was ready years before that.
I'm sure. When did you first fall in love with aviation? When did you first know this is what I want to do?
I think it was when my father bought that Super Cub and got to see the places it could take you. To me, there's all sorts of flying, and I respect it all. There's the fast and high, and the technology is amazing, but it's kind of stagnant for me. You're going in a straight line, you're 40,000 feet, and you look, you see things. But I like to be down low and slow, in contour flying, and I'll show you some pictures later on of this. But seeing the world at 80 miles an hour, 50 feet off the deck is really my passion. Not to say that the other's not a great passion. Also, it's more affordable for me. Going Mach 1 at 40,000 feet is not in my price, in my budget.
It's a luxurious sport, that's all I can say, isn't it?
There you go, yeah.
So how many hours do you have right now flying?
So I fly recreationally. I don't fly commercially, so I'm not really required to keep a logbook anymore. I have to keep a logbook for the minimum thing, so I don't really track my hours.
Yes.
I think last time I entered was 4,000 or 5,000 hours, but I fly 200 hours or so a year, and I've been flying for 40 years, so 8,000 maybe? I don't know.
Wow. You know that a pilot is truly a free bird when they don't even keep a logbook of their hours.
Well, that may be because I'm lazy, too. So.
So what I want to ask you, with all of your hours flying, with all of your experiences in multiple types of aircrafts, what is your favorite plane to fly and why?
Well, that's a very, very easy question for me. It's the Piper Super Cub. And the Piper Super Cub is the gold standard in bush planes. Everybody tries to replicate it, beat it, and as Paul said, they were designed in the 50s, and they're still the one to beat. And we can improve upon it, but we can't improve on it in big leaps. We can only improve upon it incrementally, it seems.
Yes. How about, from all of your hours flying, the most challenging flight you've had and what you did about it? That's a hard one, isn't it?
Probably running out of gas. It's probably the most challenging.
Running out of gas.
Which you're not supposed to do, obviously.
And not in a glider as well, in an actual
Correct. Yeah,
plane.
I bought a new aircraft, and these Cubs have sight gauges. And you can see the fuel in the sight gauges. This is new aircraft to me, and the sight gauges weren't installed properly. So I could see the fuel in the gauge, and I just wanted to test out an engine change, go around the patch really quickly, and I saw the fuel, and I don't want to get more fuel. I'm low, but I know I have enough. And I pulled off, and 200 feet off the ground, the engine quit.
Oh, my God.
So, but fortunately, I was on a very long runway, and it was a non-event. Just landed, glided in, and landed.
Yes. I'm happy you're safe, and I'm happy that went as if it was just a casual day.
Yeah.
Yeah? If we could please scroll over the pictures, since if you could just check if the hanger is next to you. It's not, right? Yes. Oh, finally.
Okay.
I'm glad. Thank you. Perfect. So you have a few pictures to show us, and you have a few of your experiences to also showcase.
Yeah, so I was requested to talk about desert bush planes. In the States, we really don't have the deserts like in Saudi Arabia. So I don't have a whole lot of desert bush flying experience, but I do have quite a bit of Africa flying experience. And two friends and I had the fortune of taking a trip from East Africa in Kenya all the way down to Namibia. Our goal was to explore the Skeleton Coast from Angola to South Africa. We explored the whole thing. We spent about a week and a half in Namibia, and we also had to get there from East Africa. We probably flew over 7,000 air miles, which to these jet jockeys probably isn't very much, but if you're going 80 miles an hour, it's quite a bit of flying. So I guess I'll start off showing some pictures from that trip. Did I just hit this?
Yeah, so I think it's this one. The one to the right? Yes.
So we started off in Kenya, and this is one of the aircraft we took, and this is in the Rift Valley in Kenya. Sand dunes. Sand dunes are a perfect place for these bush planes to land. They're always pretty smooth. In Alaska, we have much more treacherous terrain to deal with, but sand is a great thing.
It looks beautiful.
Oops, wrong one.
There you are.
So,
oh wow!
The beauty of a bush plane is that you're not confined to runways. You can see a really neat area, and if you can find a place to land, you can go ahead and land and explore it. And that's really the beauty of the thing, is exploring. You're not constrained.
How did you land here?
Well, you land on the water, very shallow water bank out in front of it to the right.
Oh my God.
So, yeah, these are very incredible airplanes, especially in the hands of a qualified pilot. Here we're on the deck, literally. This is just water skiing down one of the rivers. I can't remember. It's probably a tributary to the Zambezi River in probably Zimbabwe, on our way. And I'm just skipping forward to the Skeleton Coast. You can see that there's a tremendous amount of sand. The sand goes from the Atlantic Ocean, sometimes almost 100 miles inland. There's a lot of sand in Namibia. It's a fascinating, uninhibited place. There's hardly any people, hardly no structures. It really is a wilderness.
It looks like a wilderness, and it looks beautiful.
We land on the beach anywhere, obviously not in the rocks, but, there's almost an infinite number of places to land when you're on these kind of trips on the beach.
It's limitless, isn't it?
Yeah. The sand dunes can be up to 400 meters high. This is a very tall one. You can't even see the top of it. We really didn't have a...
So we just have to take 1 minute.
Okay.
Yes, of course. Of course. Of course.
Okay, just a quick brief. Saudi Falcons are here to greet you. تعالوا هنا. خلوا بالتساوي. واحد هنا. We have to do formation. I used to fly formation, in the Hawk. I was hoping one of them would be sick so they can ask me to go with them. Didn't work out. So I'll fly with you soon, inshallah.
We hope so.
Come to Tabuk, inshallah.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll do this picture. They're going to give me something. Then I suggest, and I'm sorry, Doug, to interrupt you. So to reward you back, I'm going to ask the pilots to all come up here. If you don't mind, take a picture with the Saudi Falcons. Let's do it. People who can fly. Huh? Where is it? I know them. Don't worry.
You guys are great.
Yeah. Where's Doug? أنت you can fly. You can fly. هذا اللي عندهم مدرسة الطيران عمره 45 سنة يدرسون على الإنترنت. 1.5 مليون طيار يتعلموا منه. أنا ودي السعودي فالكونز يكونون مرئيين يعني. خلوا. All right. Who else we have? Lebanese pilots? No Lebanese pilots? Jessica, where's Jessica? Where's Jessica? Where's she? أنت طيار?
Yeah.
Okay. Where is Jessica? Where are you?
Jessica too.
No, come here with us. Come here with us. Come down. هذه ما لها يدين. مدرب الطيران ما لها يدين. ايش رايك؟ تربط كنادرها يعني come in the middle. Yeah. مشعل السديري هنا. Now wasn't this worth pausing for? شكرا لكم. شكرا لكم الله يبارك فيك. That's the way to do things right than me doing their pictures there. That كيف يا زيد? Always have to keep the head working. You want to do it right, you do it صح. طب عندهم الحين شيء بيعطوني اياه ولا شيء؟ درع ولا ايش قالوا؟
أضواء معكم هدية. تفضل.
What an amazing pause, right? If everyone can please go back to their seats. What a beautiful gift. What a beautiful pause as well. الله يعطيكم العافية. فخر 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 للمملكة. شكرا لكم. Saudi Falcons, everyone. Captain Doug Keller. We sincerely apologize for that, but it was a very nice surprise, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, here we are.
So, where were we? Sand dunes. These are massive sand dunes. They go all along the coast. Just incredible.
They look incredible as well.
Again, this picture is taken maybe a quarter of the way up that sand dune. The sand dunes goes right down to the ocean. To escape the boredom, well, not really boredom, we do a lot of water skiing, and this was quite an amazing event. I wasn't the pilot, and I wouldn't do that, but I'm sure those two individuals will never forget that day.
Just looking at it, you get a thrill.
And again, the beauty of these airplanes is that almost everywhere is your landing spot. It could be hills, just about anywhere. And it's what's the fun or the joy of it is the challenge. These spots really aren't that challenging. In Alaska, that's more challenging usually, but it's still just a joy. It's no two landings are the same, and I get a thrill every time. I love it even more 40 years later, so I never lose the interest. On the coast,
wow.
Whale bones. They call it the skeleton coast. I always thought because of skeletons, and we'll see later that there's also a lot of shipwrecks on the skeleton coast. Again, just more shots of the airplanes. I don't know. I'm really biased. I think these airplanes are beautiful. More water skiing through lakes. Africa is a phenomenal place to fly. Diverse culture, scenery. You know, it's not very populated. Although sometimes we'd land in an area where we didn't see any people, and 30 minutes later there'd be a group of people that just swarm you. That a lot of them haven't ever seen a small plane before. They'll come up to the bush wheel, the big tires, and push on it, and you know, they've got their spears, and you're hoping they don't put their spear in the tire. But it's such a great experience to see that. Anything under 45 is dangerous. Those big tires, the bigger the tire, the easier it is. The water's like concrete, so as long as you don't penetrate under 45, you're fine. A lot of times we use water to land. There's a sandbar that's short. We want to extend our artificial runway. We'll use the water to slow us down, drag us down. And sometimes if you have enough current in a river, you could actually just land on 20 feet. And you can use water to get off as well. I'm not recommending anybody do this, but we've experimented with it. Here's a shipwreck. This was an interesting sight. I can remember taking this picture still today. I was backing up, trying to get the ship and the three planes in, and not really paying attention to my backside. And all of a sudden I heard a big squawk from a seal, very loud. Had no idea it was there. I jumped probably 5 feet in the air. There's thousands and thousands of seals all around that, inside the ship and all around the sides of the ship. Again, just a great exploration site.
Oh, wow. Look at that picture.
These aircraft are very maneuverable, and they're very slow flying. They're very forgiving. So little arches like that we can fly through. Again, this is a different country, so no federal aviation regulations here, and no witnesses. So, I was able to land near the opening there and get this shot, and then of course I flew by myself as well through it.
The picture is gorgeous.
Again, the dunes are kind of a copper shade, just incredible. And inland, there's a lot of places to land, a lot of weird formations. If you ever get a chance to go to Namibia, it's an incredible country to visit. On all these explorations, there's always uh-ohs. I punctured a bush wheel. We call them bush wheels on Lake Kariba in Zimbabwe, and I hit a stick, and the stick deflated the tire instantly. And of course, we didn't have an extra bush wheel with us, so we had to repair it. And this cut was so big that we put patches on the exterior, and the patch would hemorrhoid out and last half a day. We got to the point where we just put Gorilla Tape or duct tape over the whole tire, trying to get by. That wasn't very successful. So we fought this for 4 days, and we finally came up with a solution that worked. Now, this is a tubeless tire, not like an automotive tubeless tire, but a tubeless tire like an inner tube. So we took the tire off the rim, sliced inside the tire, and patched the tire from the inside out so that it wouldn't bulge out the patch.
Did that end up working?
Yes, it did. So, of course, I had to buy another bush wheel when I got
like
back.
A true entrepreneur, huh?
Yeah. So, it's part of the fun of these expeditions is always trying to figure out what to do. We had another issue. Fortunately, right on the coast, on the deck, 10 feet off the ground, these are fixed-pitch aluminum propellers. This propeller tip departed the aircraft, and it was probably 6 inches off. So you can imagine one blade being 6 inches shorter than the other. You cannot continue to run the airplane. It's so out of balance that if you kept running it, the engine would depart the whole aircraft. So you had to shut the engine off immediately, whether you were over trees or anything. Unfortunately, we were over the sand, and land, and then we have to deal with what are we going to do with this. So the obvious solution, obviously, is to cut the other end off. So we're hundreds of miles from an airport. We really don't have any choice. We're right on the surf. The tide's coming in. So we carry tools. We had a hacksaw blade. So we measured the length that was cut off on one side and cut off the other side. And unbelievably, it ran really smooth.
Wow. Wow.
And a little less performance, but it was another 4 days. We had another prop in and swapped it out.
Do you mind if we open the floor for Q&A? Because I see Ken Hoffman wanting to ask a few questions, and I don't want to forbid you guys of that option. So please, anyone in the audience that has questions for Captain Doug Keller and his incredible experience, bush flying and engineering as well. We have a question over there. If we could please have the microphone. Captain Pervez, it's right over there. Oh, okay.
Did you have a difficult time finding fuel for the airplanes?
This was about a year in making. We went through like 8 different countries, and fuel was very scarce. So we had planned a trip to fuel stops, and we had fuel stashed along our route in 55-gallon drums. So it's not something you just get in the plane and say one day, let's go to Namibia. So we planned it out. What was really interesting at fuel stops is that these countries would not take their own currency. We had to carry around a big sack of U.S. dollar bills. They don't take their own currency, they just take the U.S. dollars, which were very odd to me. But we planned well, and it worked out.
Thank you.
We have a question over there. Right over there.
Yes, hello. We just want to know, when flying over the desert for a long time, what kind of thermals are we talking about? And what are the types of those thermals and the effect of them on the turbulence? Are we talking about one kind of turbulence or many kinds?
So these airplanes have a very low wing loading, so any kind of turbulence is very noticeable to the pilot. So, I don't know, we feel turbulence all the time and we just drive through it. So thermals and stuff is not something we kind of register. We just fight it. But it wasn't out of ordinary. It's not like it was anything unnatural or different.
All right, thank you.
We have a question on the front row. Sorry, Captain. Right over there.
A question of landing in sand dunes. Did you do any landing in sand dunes? I mean, I know you have push wheels, Alaskan tires. So does it stick? Does it go inside the sand if it's thin?
That's a good question, because I've had some issues with sand that didn't go very well. Not on this trip, but in inland, the sand is pretty consistent. It's dry. There's not a bunch of moisture in it. But if you get close to the shoreline, like over here, the moisture content changes how sticky it is or how much you sink. So it's more about a moisture content and maybe slope. If it's near the shoreline, it's a steep slope, the moisture runs off of it, so it dries up quicker, so it's more consistent. But typically in these sand dunes, it was very, very consistent, away from the shore. It never had really super hard or super soft sand, so it was never an issue. But if you get near the water, that's when you need to be more, in my experience, more cautious.
We have one question over there. Yes, please.
Related to sand, to be able to fly in all these beautiful places, you end up flying in what's fairly a harsh environment. Any issues with bearings or sand getting into the engine or anything like that, or into the air filter?
Bearings, yes. So we run through water. We typically don't run through salt water, just fresh water. At least we try not to. But as far as engine intake, we don't really have an issue with it. The one thing I wanted to mention that about this desert bush flying versus regular, like an Alaska aircraft, is the only difference really is the temperature, ambient temperature. So these aircraft could go to Alaska and operate without any modifications at all. Now, if the air temperature gets excessively hot, then you have to worry about engine cooling, and that's usually just addressed by a larger oil capacity or oil cooler capacity, and that usually takes care of it. These are very slow flying aircraft with big engine inlets, so they can handle a big diversity in ambient temperatures.
Thank you, Captain, for your informative talking. From your long experience in aviation, what is your best advice that you can give for the new pilot or beginner aviator? Thank you very much.
For somebody just starting out, if you want to do this kind of flying, my best advice is to learn on a tail dragger aircraft, because all the extreme bush planes are tail draggers. So it's a lot easier to learn on a tail dragger and get that over you when you're learning than to go from a tri-gear back to a tail dragger. It's different in the United States that you have to get a special license to fly a tail dragger nowadays, and there's fewer and fewer tail dragger pilots. So if you can start off with a tail dragger, and you want to fly a tail dragger, then that's by far my best advice. If you don't ever want to fly a tail dragger, then you don't need to worry about it.
That's a great answer. We have one question over here.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, please. The first one is there a specific course that you have to take to be a bush pilot?
No, that's a good question. The airplanes are pretty readily available, and you can go and buy one, put the tires on. But you need two elements. You need the equipment and you need the skills. And the skills are a lot harder to attain. I don't want to give you the impression that you could just go buy one of these things and a week later you're out doing this. That's not realistic. It's not going to end well. You need a mentor, and you need to go into it very slowly and work your way into it. It takes more than hundreds of hours to be really proficient, thousands of hours to really master it. And you work your way up until you find a limit, and usually that means you bent some metal. And in normal conversations, you ask a pilot, have you ever crashed? And they say no. That's a great pilot. If you ask a bush pilot if they've ever crashed and they say no, then that's not a great bush pilot.
Really?
You've got to bend some metal, earn your wings, to be really good, proficient about this.
Oh, wow.
Both Paul and I have bent our share of metal.
How many times have you crashed?
Oh, that's a personal question. I'll be honest. I've gone on my nose twice, and I've gone on my back twice. But each time I flew it out. So these are very simple machines, and that's the beauty of them. We can repair them crudely on site and just get them out to the airport, to the hangar to rebuild them. And they're very easily rebuilt with skills.
Amazing.
I have a second question, please.
Yes.
Oh, okay. When you're flying, for example, in the sand dunes of Namibia, how do you judge if this is an area with sand dunes where it's suitable to land or not? Or is it just because it's close to the sea, then you'll just avoid it?
Well, this is really mild off-airport use, these sand dunes, because they're very massive in size, and they're smooth. So you can almost land anywhere that you just pick. In Alaska, or where it's more Arctic type, rough terrain, it takes a lot more skill because there's more obstructions. These sand dunes go for miles and miles and miles, and there's not big crevices in them, or maybe they roll over, but you can roll over that. In Alaska, it takes a lot more skill because there's rocks, branches, logs, all sorts of different obstructions.
We would love to take more questions, but unfortunately our time is short. I sincerely apologize, but Captain Doug Keller will be sitting right over there if you want to have a side conversation. I know he's a very interesting person with a very interesting hobby and passion as well. Thank you, Captain Doug, for being with us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of Hangar Talks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain. All right, we're coming towards a close end to our session. But our next speaker is an incredible pilot with incredible experience, Captain Robert Metter. Please give me the biggest round of applause.
Thank you. Where would you like me to sit?
You're the boss. You pick wherever you want to sit.
This is your cockpit.
How about you sit here and I can sit right over here?
That'll work.
Captain Robert, I don't know where to start. Just to give you guys a brief intro, Captain Robert is the chairman of the National Association of Flight Instructors. You fly single and multi-engine planes, correct?
Correct.
How many hours do you have?
I don't know. Somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 hours.
Incredible. And to have such an accomplishment and to be the chairman of the National Association of Flight Instructors, how did that come about?
Well, I was fortunate enough to be nominated to the board of the organization. And when Ken wanted to resign, the rest of the board all looked at me and said, "You're it." And I've been very blessed, have a wonderful bunch of people that I'm working with, and a great staff that we're working with. Amazing. Well, since they have you, I'm sure it's an incredible team, not just staff. Captain Robert, I have to say, the outfit is just beautiful. Well, thank you. Can we have a big round of applause for the outfit alone? Well, I wanted to say thank you to Prince Sultan, the Saudi Aero Club, and the Saudi Space Commission for having me. And I thought, I'm in your country, I'm a guest in your country, and I wanted to honor that. So that's why I elected to wear this today for this.
You being here with us, you giving us your time is you honoring your visit here, and we thank you so much for being a part of it.
Well, thank you.
So I want to start from the beginning, right? When the first butterflies started happening towards aviation, when the first passion started coming to life, what was the story and when did it happen?
Well, I grew up in the Chicago area, for those of you who know the States, central United States. And I lived underneath, almost literally, for those of you familiar with the airport, almost directly underneath the approach of 22 left at O'Hare International Airport. So I don't know if the slide program will run, but that's okay. At the age I was growing up, they were still flying DC-7s. The 707 was relatively new, DC-8s. The U.S. Air Force had KC-97s going in to O'Hare. So I could see all these really neat airplanes, and they were low enough I could see the logos. I could see Lufthansa, I could see Aer Lingus, I could see Pan American, TWA. I'm showing my age when I say Pan American and TWA, by the way, right? So I could see all these cool airliners from around the world coming in to land at O'Hare. And that's when I got the aviation bug. And then at the age of 9, I'm the first one born in the United States. My family is German. We went back to Germany for a wedding and to see my grandparents. And we took off. We flew over on. That was my first flight. Was on a Lufthansa 707, and I was just enthralled. The houses got small, and the world expanded, and I've been hooked ever since.
You say it so beautifully, because I think that's the visual perception of every pilot when they first fall in love.
It really is. And any pilot who says, it's just flying, either doesn't belong in the business or they're lying.
Yes, that is very true.
It's so beautiful.
That is very true. So when you first started flying, what plane did you train in? And what were the biggest challenges that faced you learning flying at not considerably a young age, right?
I learned to fly at 38.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be when I was young, I wanted to be a United States naval aviator. I wanted to fly the F-14 so badly I could taste it. And unfortunately, the U.S. Navy took one look at these and said, that's not going to happen ever. So that went away, so I wound up my day career, so to speak, was with a major United States railroad. And moving on from there, one day I was flying an RC model airplane. Well, I'll back up a little bit. Not so much the model airplane, but one day I was delayed on a flight on United Airlines. We had a radio go bad, and we had to land in Sioux City, Iowa. And I was talking to the captain. We were both getting ice cream cones because there was nothing else to do while we were waiting for a new radio to come in. And I was talking to the captain about airplanes. I said, I really wish I could learn how to fly. He said, well, why can't you? I said, well, look at these glasses. I can't fly. I can't. They won't let me. And he looked at me and said, what are you talking about? And so he was an instructor at an airport near where I lived. He said, come to Stick and Rudder Flying Club. It's a great club. Learn how to fly. And that's how I learned how to fly. That chance encounter with a captain. And I was that's one of those turning points in life that's just amazing. Now, the biggest challenge, the flying club, I was a little lighter then, but I'm tall. And the flying club had a policy that if the weight restrictions made it, you learned in a 152. That was the training airplane. And the hardest part of me learning how to fly in a Cessna 152 is I have size 13 feet. Trying to get those through the door is a nightmare.
But you made it happen.
I made it happen. I wanted to fly.
If there's a will, there's a way. And we just saw that from Captain Jessica as well.
Absolutely.
And it's phenomenal to see that your will of learning how to fly didn't stop you regardless of age, regardless of glasses. And you continued pursuing that dream. And here you are today, the chairman of the National Association of Flight Instructors. And
I'm very fortunate. Growing up, being able to do this at a later age, all my life I've been inspired by the astronauts, the Mercury 7. Obviously, the next 9, I'm showing again my age, and Prince Sultan knows exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. The Apollo program, those are all that. We had a United Airlines captain who lived across the street, all these things. And continuing on, the shuttle program came in. I remember specifically your flight because it was big news in the United States, obviously. I remember being excited by the Enterprise being launched off the back of the 747. So it's always been there. That passion's been there. And the message I would have, and I'm going to ask, we've got a lot of pilots in the room, and you're going to reach out and touch people who are interested. And they're going to say, it's hard, it's difficult, whatever. If you want to learn how, tell your friends who are interested. The only regret you'll have in life is later, I wish I'd done that. Whatever it is you want to do, whatever your passion is going to be. But if it's flying, and if you have friends that are interested in what you're doing as pilots, and they say, I wish I could do that. Well, let's go. Let's go flying. And if there's a young person that's interested, I've seen a lot of kids around here, and it's terrific. Take them up. Let them experience it. And if you feel confident and you feel safe enough, let a child take the controls. Make sure things are safe, but let them take the controls. Let them experience it. Let them see what it's like.
Help them realize their passion.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I love the way you say it because it just shows how much you wished for someone when you were a kid to come and take you on a flight.
Well, when I was a kid, they all looked at me and said, are you crazy?
So, since you're mentioning children's passion towards aviation, I would love to ask you, for every dreamer in this room, and I just met multiple kids when I was having lunch, and they were like, we want to be pilots and we want to be aviators. For all these kids and for all these ambitious youth, what's your advice to them to become pilots?
Okay, obviously, be diligent in your studies. Learn the skills that you need. You don't have to be, pardon the pun, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. But you have to be diligent. You have to have the discipline, the learning discipline. Be persistent. Be respectful of your elders, but be persistent. Say, I want to do this in a respectful way and can find a way to make it happen. Okay? Seek out a mentor. Seek out someone. At this age in my life, I had mentors coming through my aviation career and obviously my business career, but now through the aviation side. My instructor was a mentor. My first instructor was a mentor. Even now, chairman of an association, yes, I have a mentor, Ken Hoffman. And now Sultan teases him quite a bit, but you couldn't have a better mentor. I've mentored people. So find someone who can help you through the hurdles. Find someone who can help you through the rough spots. Understand that there's a saying in the United States, I don't know if anybody here has ever heard it, but flying is the hardest thing in the world to learn, but it's the easiest thing to do. Once you've learned how to fly, it's very easy. You will have difficulty. Work your way through those difficulties because it will make you a better person, a better pilot. You'll learn more about yourself, and you'll learn more about the nature of flying and science and the physics. Most importantly, the beauty.
And I think self-confidence for every aviator
Absolutely.
And for every pilot is just something that you cannot compare to a non-aviator.
I have to agree with that. I have grown as a person, both because I'm a pilot and because I'm an instructor. If you get a chance to become an instructor, do it. You will learn more about yourself and other people than you ever thought possible.
So if I can go back to the National Association of Flight Instructors.
Yes.
I would love to know, where do you see the future of flight instructors going forward? What are the new innovations, the new technologies? What's the future of flight instructors?
Okay. That's a very difficult thing to predict. This device here didn't exist when I was a teenager. Now I'm dependent on it. Okay? This is where the world went. Where we're going, it's magical. I know that. We'll have better teaching tools. We'll have better computers, better teaching aids. I see student pilots, instead of building gigantic fixed base simulators, aviation training devices, I see goggles, 3D goggles, virtual reality. I couldn't get to it. Virtual reality goggles being a training tool. I see the ability for instructors to help to monitor students when they study at home and help mentor them at home. But I also see a growing professionalism. I think instructors are getting better at preparing students, whether they want to fly for themselves in general aviation, or if they want to go on to a career in the airlines or the military or corporate. We're preparing our students better for those roles. We're making better, more professional pilots. Everything I've heard here, Doug just now, he talked about you might have to bend some metal, but he said it in a way that means we're going to incrementally learn and do things to make it a safer operation. And that's what we're doing. We're learning to do that. We're finding better ways. We're gaining better understanding of human factors, human motivation.
And I love how much your answer shows that we don't know what's going to happen in the future with all of the booming technologies and emerging deep technologies as well. And I love the reality of that because it keeps you on your toes.
Well, the other thing is it keeps me young. I want to see what happens.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't want to check out. I want to see. I want at least 30 more years.
God bless. I would love to open the room for questions and for Q&A for anyone that has a few questions. Yes, please. I think you are an aspiring aviator, aren't you? If you can please stand up. Yes. Are you a pilot now? Your dream is to become a pilot, right?
Okay.
If you could please have a microphone. Yes.
Okay. Are you a student pilot? No, not yet. Okay.
Mike, please.
Oh.
He's actually one of the people that come and spoke to me in lunch, and he was like,
I'm a high school student. I'm not a pilot student.
Okay.
But I have a question that in the future, the commercial pilot job, it will be from the past and no need for it because the computer are doing everything like auto landing, auto takeoff. It will be from the past, or do you think no?
I like automation. I have to be careful with this answer because I love automation. I love technology. If you ever were to fly with me in a well-equipped airplane on a long cross-country, this is what you'll see. Yes. Because the airplane is doing the routine, mundane work of getting me to where I'm going. I'm saving myself for the important task of making judgments. An airplane is a wonderful machine, but it is as dumb as a rock. We're the ones that have the judgment and the skill. I liken a good pilot airplane combination the same way the Olympics looks at a horse and a rider. The horse without the rider is nothing. The rider without the horse is also nothing. Together they make a marvelous team. Okay? The airplane obviously is not alive, but it is a wonderful tool, but it does not have judgment. Pilot has the judgment. We're the ones who make the decision. We're the ones who control the outcome of a flight. So I see the future of automation as being a tool to help pilots do their job better, more consistently, in a more repeatable fashion, perhaps. But at the same time, trust me, an autopilot will happily fly you into a thunderstorm without even thinking about it. That's why we're here. Does that answer your question?
No, thank you.
And by the way, I like your attitude.
Thank you.
I'm not a pilot yet.
But I will be a pilot in the future.
There you go. Good man.
Yes, you will be, inshallah, ya Rab. Allah yahfadak. Any more questions for Captain Robert? Yes, we have a question over there.
Oh. Hello, glad to meet you again. My name is Abdulaziz. I have a question regarding the foreign instructor pilots. How to get used or benefit from your association?
Okay, could you repeat the question a little bit more?
Yes, I'm a Saudi instructor pilot, and since I'm not covered by FAA or any US regulations, how to get the benefit of your association?
Oh, you want to be a member of NAFI?
Yeah.
It hurts for about 1 second. You just go on the internet and use your credit card. It's $54.
And how to get the benefit of it as a foreign association?
We call ourselves National Association of Flight Instructors. I'm glad you brought that up. We call ourselves the National Association of Flight Instructors. That's just because it started in the United States. We're an international organization. We have members on every continent, including Antarctica. There's somebody down there, McMurdo Sound.
Oh, wow.
You know, that flew. There's some member down. I don't know how the mail gets to him. I don't know how we get the magazine to him, but he's down there. but anyway, so it probably goes to some APO, U.S. military post office box. But no, we're an international organization, and we welcome members from other countries. The national is just a traditional word for it. We would love to have you as a member, and we would love to learn from you. Aviation is truly international. How many people, just out of curiosity, let me ask you, sir, how many people do you think are in the air right this very second? As we speak, how many people are up in the air?
Few hundreds.
1 million people are in the air in airplanes as we speak.
Oh, wow. Does that include passengers and crew members?
Passengers, crews. There's 1 million people. There's a city in the air right now. There's a BBC special called City in the Air you should see.
Wow.
So my point about that is aviation is international. What you can learn and the insights you can bring us, while we bring insights and what we've learned to you, benefits everybody. The United States doesn't own aviation. Neither do the Europeans, neither do the Asians, neither does the Middle East. We're all in this together to do it safely and to learn from each other. And that, by the way, is a message that I heard from the Prince yesterday about this is what is going to foster greater international cooperation and peace. That's the dream. That's been the dream of many aviators for many years. So don't worry about being from here and saying National Association of Flight Instructors. Besides which, I could use the revenue.
So glad. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? We can take one more question right over here.
Yes, good afternoon, Captain. Can you tell us more? Can you tell us about the danger of being an instructor and the risk the instructor take to teach new students, and maybe some critical situation you experienced with the new pilots?
Okay.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. There's a saying that I've heard. There's a saying that I've heard. It says, "The student pilot's job is to kill the instructor. The instructor pilot's job is to prevent that from happening." Okay? So the critical situation is we have to watch all the time. I don't care. Honestly, if Ken were sitting in the airplane with me, not a criticism of Ken, it's just the nature of the beast. I'm watching him. If the roles were reversed and I was taking dual instruction from him for recurrency or something like that, same thing. With a new pilot, they don't know what they don't know yet. So we have to watch them. We have to make sure that we brief them thoroughly before we go fly. And we have to debrief them thoroughly afterwards so they learn the lessons so they can apply them. Now, if you want to, the quick hangar story for myself was I was out with a Swiss pilot getting his glider pilot getting his U.S. power license, and we're flying into the airport, and I said, "Why don't you take some power out?" Which is an American way of saying reduce the throttle, right? Well, I learned about American idiom speaking to Swiss pilots whose second language is English. He took the power out by pulling the mixture all the way out.
Oh my God.
That was an exciting 30 seconds of flying. So, yes, those are the types of things that happen. But if you stay on top of it and stay ahead of the student and understand that every word you say will be taken literally, you'll be okay.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely, please.
I think because of the time, this probably be the last comment, and then we get the next group, because people traveling today to the desert. Thank you very much for an absolutely inspiring.
Thank you, sir.
Really, and you surpassed our mentor, Ken, in the sense of the way you do the presentation. Now, you said that you're right. Flying is difficult to learn, and it's easier to do, but this is for people who have not had to spend 40 years learning from Ken. That wasn't easy at all. I think he missed my comment when I was speaking earlier about having to put up with 40 years with Ken. I'd rather go with Paul and be eaten by polar bears. I tried to get rid of Ken, if Paul remembers, in 1986. Remember? We landed at the Cup, and there was two of us sitting in the back, Ken and I, in tandem. And then we let Ken out. He said he wanted to explore or something. Then we took off and left him. And when we looked down, there was a polar bear, there was a bear within 50 feet, I think, 100 feet from Ken. And Paul convinced me to go back and pick him up.
Well, I'm kind of glad you did.
Big mistake. Thank you very much. And we want us to join venture. The Saudi instructors, are really great Saudi instructors, pilots, to join venture with your organization, NAFI, to do something together in Saudi and really elevate the level of instructors and the education instructors and the excellence level that we need to get to. So we'll speak about that.
I look forward to that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the talk.
Captain, thank you so much for being with us today.
Ken wants to yell one thing here at me. Ken wants equal time.
There is a way to become a member of the. There's a way to become a member of NAFI and get all your money back.
There you go. You can
the discounts.
The discounts that we provide. By the way, just let me give the website, and I forgot to put it on this slide. I apologize. But if you go to www.nafinet.org, NAFINET.org, you can find find how to join us, and you'll see a lot of great benefits that we have. We have a great magazine. We have copies of it out here for people to take home. I don't want to take them back to the States. Please take them.
Take all the magazines.
Take
it's
the
right
magazines, enjoy them, and feel free. My email address is in there. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Captain.
you.
We were honored to have you with us today.
The honor was all mine.
Thank you.
It was a great interview.
Thank you very much. All right, are you ready for this? We have a saying in Arabic, وَخِتَامُهَا مِسْك, which means the end is always very extremely beautiful and it smells like musk. So our next panel and our final panel for Hangar Talk Saudi Arabia has two incredible pilots. Two pilots from very different backgrounds, very different experiences, and very accomplished. They are both very visual, and they are both amazing storytellers. Please give me the biggest round of applause for Captain Long and Captain Pervez. We need another microphone here, please. Captain! Here you go, my dear. Please, I've been waiting for this panel since forever.
Yeah, you take the. I like the emergency exit. Just in case I have to bail. You go.
I have to say I'm honored to be sharing the stage with both of you. And it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal how very extremely diverse your experiences are. I mean, Captain Pervez, if you would allow me, you have around 19,000 hours, I believe. 18,500, right? And you were in the Pakistan Air Force, you were in the British Air Force, and you have so many stories. We were just having lunch and you were saying some stories. I didn't want us to stop. So I would love to just kind of start off with you. If you could tell us a brief background of your history in aviation and what brought you here today as well.
Can we have my
yes, if you could please have the slides and the presentations as well. They would be uploaded now.
All right, folks, first thing first. I'd like to thank His Royal Highness, Prince Sultan bin Salman, for giving us, everybody here, especially me, the opportunity to come here from Canada and meet amazing people here tied up with the same industry as I and yourself have been. Everybody here has been an amazing source of inspiration for me. And I'm like a high-time pilot, but I'm still learning so much from these amazing people, industry, entrepreneurs. And talking about inspiration, Jessica Cox today just shook everybody's soul and certainly touched my heart. So that was a high point for me. Really, it was. Thank you, sir, for giving me the pleasure of coming here. I'm totally indebted to you. You know that. Thank you, sir. No, I don't know about that, so thank you. Folks, you can see the title here is Bonded by Aviation. And I really mean that every sense of the word. The reason why I'm here is His Royal Highness is an aviator, and so am I, and so is everybody else. And we're sitting here because of that bond. So that's the bond all pilots have. Non-pilots may not be able to understand that, but we have it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And your story in the Air Forces in Pakistan and then in Britain as well, and then you becoming a jet pilot. Can you please tell us about this incredible story?
Yeah, we can go to the next slide, or if I have a thingy here. Yeah. This one here. And, is that the one? Is it? Oh, okay. Does it work? No, it doesn't work. Yeah, that's me, fighter pilot, all of 21 years old. I did have some hair before, believe me, and that's the truth. Anyway, folks, just like everybody else, at about age 9, I became totally infatuated with airplanes, not only just airplanes, but fighter airplanes, because my father was a base commander for a military air base, lived very close to an Air Force base. And I ended up with that dream accomplished. I did 12 years of military service, flew jet fighters, the F-86, and the next one would be, well, this is just an explanation, the next one. Oh, yeah, I'll let you do that, yeah.
I got the clicker.
Yeah.
There we go.
And, okay, now, see if you guys can spot me here. Dead easy. Yeah, that was our transition from the F-86 to the MiG-15 to the MiG-19, which is the last one I flew in the Air Force. And then I ended up in Saudi Arabia. And here I'll stop and I'll make a confession.
Tell us.
My confession is the reason for me to be bonded with His Royal Highness came about with two singular coincidences you call, sir. I would agree with that, but then we had a discussion with the learned professor, David. Stand up, please, David. You're the professor, the author, yeah. Yeah, and we were discussing, in fact, he opened up the subject and he said, the Prince used the word coincidence, but there has to be another word for it. And another accomplished gentleman, Tahir, would you please stand up? He said destiny. So either way, there are two moments in my timeline that bonded me with HRH. One was the fact that when I got out of the Air Force, I was just a fighter pilot, and there's no demand for fighter pilots in the civilian world. They want you to know, if you've flown 4-engine airplanes, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, this was the airplane that brought me to Saudi Arabia. And it's a spray airplane, and I got a job flying over the cities of Saudi Arabia. And the most amazing thing was that the finger of Allah actually fell on me, because the company that had this contract, the Swiss company, had to have a Muslim pilot to spray the cities of Mecca and Medina. So somehow, way out there in Pakistan, when I was spraying, crop spraying, they'd already been headhunting. And unknown to me, the finger of Allah fell on me. So here I am. And the second amazing thing was that after I had 2 years of that flying, which was in itself an amazing story, I decided that I should expand my horizons and look for jobs, and a company called Bin Laden Aviation was hiring at that time. Now, if I had not flown this business, been here, and not joined Bin Laden Aviation, I would not have met His Royal Highness in 1976. And he was just 17, 18 years old when I ended up in...
As he is now.
And I'll never forget that moment, because I was flying with Sheikh Salim bin Laden, who himself was a pilot. He was a couple of years younger than me, and a very accomplished pilot as well. And we took a Hawker Siddeley 125, 1BR, the oldest Hawker Siddeley in the world. And we ended up in Boulder, Colorado, where His Royal Highness was actually attending university plus flying, learning lessons. And we met at a function there. And I'll never forget you, sir. I mean, 18, you know, everybody's a kid. And I was a good 15 years older than you, right? So he's standing as he was, very tall, and I was standing as I was, very short. And I remember him sort of talking about us. During the sort of discourse of the evening, we talked, and he said, you know what? I'm going to call you Smiley. So we can slide for you. So here's His Royal Highness. Yeah. Okay, keep going. Yeah. That's the airplane we took to exactly the same airplane, Golf Alpha Tango Whiskey Hotel. And we took that to Boulder, Colorado. And we can go a little forward. That's my name. And he said, why would you do, I asked, why, sir? And he says, because you're always smiling.
He really is. His face is bright. And I love this picture. I love the story of you meeting His Royal Highness.
Yeah. This is actually last October in Las Vegas for the NBA convention.
This link has further pictures, right? For any of you who want to see more and more pictures, this is the link for you to go to.
There's some pictures quickly you can scan through. This other hobby of my life, flying. These are my pictures.
Beautiful. And you and Captain Long have this in common, right? You both put visuals to the most beautiful scenery in aviation. I think it's on. Captain Long, welcome.
Well, thank you.
Welcome to Hangar Talks. And I have to tell you, even though Captain Pervez has been smiling for the entire 3 days, and I think for his entire life, but you also have the same thing. The minute I met you on Thursday, and your face is just, mashallah, I have to tell you, you have one of the most happiest faces I've seen. Tell us the secret behind your happiness in aviation and your amazing photography for aviation as well.
I just like to fly. Like all the rest of us, I met Prince Otan because with Joe Clark and in Idaho. And so the two things we have in common are we both love to fly. It doesn't matter what we fly. And then we love photography. And so for what I do, I always carry my camera. And the thing is, I always like to make people smile first, to make them at ease. And then we can talk, and then we can enjoy each other's company after that.
And I believe you have more than 12,000 hours flying, right?
Well, I soloed when I was 16. I'm 54. Wow. So the last time I logged in my logbook was 2009. And it showed I had over 13.
Oh, wow.
And then on average, I fly 500 to 600 hours a year. So you can figure it out. I'll probably hit 20 here sometime or already surpass.
And Captain Long, you fly a seaplane, you fly a jet, you fly a Cessna, you fly almost every type of airplane there is.
I don't fly. I fly tail wheels just like Doug and Paul, but I fly seaplane. I fly everything pretty much, except big jet, because I don't like to travel long distance, and I mean my suitcase has to be big. So I enjoy my little backpack, but I do fly a lot of different airplanes.
Would you have a favorite plane to fly?
Just like what Ken Huff says, whatever we're in, we'll fly. But if I want to go, because I'm a search pilot, so I fly search in the state of Washington looking for a crashed airplane. So I fly my 182. And if I want to go down to San Francisco, I jump in a Piper Meridian. And it's a nice cruising. And if I want to borrow a jet, I just go borrow a jet from a friend of mine, and we just go somewhere. I just have to pay the gas bill.
And you're one of the few photographers where your work is actually in your desk, right?
Yes.
So what is your favorite destination? From everywhere you've been in the world to do aerial photography, what was your favorite destination that you actually took photographies in?
I really don't have a particular, wherever I'm at, I love to find out what make that country or that place special. So in September, I had a chance to fly with Prince Otan right out here. So if we do the video, I can show you. But, the rest of the world thinks Saudi Arabia, desert is just desert, nothing out there. And that was my perception when I first got here in September. And Perf would probably know this too. You didn't think it was just a bunch of dirt over there, did you?
No. I'll tell you what happened. When they selected me to come here, that was a crop spraying outfit. And when their chief pilot called me in Pakistan and said, hey, we need you to work for us. And I said, where? He said, Saudi Arabia. I said, you got to be kidding, man. There just are no crops in Saudi Arabia. We're crop spraying pilot. He said, well, who said you're going to be spraying crops? We're going to be spraying cities.
Oh.
That even was more strange. But then I traveled around and I did see it's totally different.
Yeah, so if we can run the video first, and then, so initially I was supposed to teach mountain flying to all of you guys out in the audience, but this is Washington where I live, and then this is in a Kodiak, so initially I was going to teach you this, but I changed it a little bit. So this is in a Kodiak, and that's on the east side of Washington State. That's about a 2,000-foot runway, and the elevation is about 3,000 feet.
Looks beautiful.
I have one simple rule to flying: don't hit anything. It doesn't matter what you do. You don't want to resort to skill or hit anything.
Oh, wow.
I even told Prince Otan that too. Don't hit anything. So the rule is.
Look at that. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean.
Look, you got the. Do we hit this one? No. So
It's a good landing, isn't it? Yeah.
So initially, that's what I was supposed to teach you, mountain flying, but I changed. I look at the audience, and I was like, it really doesn't help. So I'll show you what I did for you guys.
But I've done this before.
What's that?
I bought my first Kodiak years ago, and we've done that stuff before.
Well, you know, he and I, we were in Idaho, and I told him, it's like, we're going to go soaring in a Kodiak. He wouldn't believe me, and then we did. We spent the next 2 hours soaring a Kodiak.
I'll take you to the Alps and teach you how to land at the high mountains.
Okay, we're going to do that. Can we get the next picture, though? Because the video.
Can we please have the next pictures up and stop the video? If we can have the pictures, please. There we go. Here you go, Captain.
We got the pictures up?
They would be put up right now, but
I'll make it really quick so you guys can enjoy seeing what you're looking at.
because I believe the air show is going on right now, and
Yeah.
we have some action for us to go and see. So, Captain, what's next in your mind for aerial photography?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I just enjoy, doesn't matter, Prince Sultan and I, we were talking about coming over here and fly around for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks and capture this beautiful country of yours. And so we're just going to have to figure it out when to do it and what airplane, and then just do it, because he loved photography big time. And so, you know, we were flying around in Idaho, and it's like, I have to tell him lean forward or lean back because I'm shooting, and he tell me the same thing. And so, and he shoot it with his iPhone 11, and I got my big camera down there, so we enjoy doing that.
Beautiful.
Oh,
Here are the
all right, I'll
pictures.
go through this really quick. So you normally won't see this. This is Mount Rainier, and this is really nasty day. So that's what I was going to teach you about bad weather flying. We don't recommend you doing this when the clouds are curling around the base of the cloud. So Mount Rainier is 14,000 feet. That's in Idaho, and then that's when we went flying in a Kodiak. So this Prince Sultan is pretty meticulous when it comes to flying, and so he pre-flight that aircraft, and so that's what I spent September flying around with him, and we had a blast. You guys recognize this airport? Yeah, for those you don't know, you're sitting right in the hangar right there. Oh,
Runway 17.
now all of you guys come down here and you see all the tent along Tumama National Park. If you look back just a little bit, that's what it looks like in the back. And it's really unique to see from the air. You just tell me when to cut off. Okay, sound good.
Let's see 2 more pictures, Captain,
All right.
because I cannot say no to you.
Okay,
Look at that beauty.
That's the edge of the world right out here, and that's
Oh,
what
wow.
it looks like Colorado, Utah, and all that area. So your landscape here is stunning,
gorgeous.
and I can teach you mountain flying with that. So
Saudi Arabia, folks.
Saudi Arabia from the air.
Saudi Arabia.
There you go.
Oh,
That's our cardiac.
wow, that's a gorgeous one. What a beautiful panel. What a visual panel, I have to say. And we have the two most smiling faces I have ever seen in my life on the stage right here.
Well, appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you very
aviators, thank you for being a part of a legendary season. Thank you for being a part of Hangar Talks for the first time in history in Saudi Arabia, and to so much more to come, bi'idhnillah. Thank you all, and thank you, Saudi Space Commission, Saudi Aviation Club, Your Royal Highness, for making history happen in the past 3 days.
I want to say hello to a dear friend. This was my boss and the F-15s when the Gulf War started. That's the man that made it happen. He woke me up. I was in his office sleeping, and he said, "The war is on. Let's go." Prince Bandar bin Abdullah. So he was the hardest pilot on F-15s, kept everybody on their toes, and no beard those days, right?
No beard.
And his daughter,
I need all the oxygen.
his daughter is working here, making things happen here. I only knew that yesterday. And she's even better than her father. شكرا عمد الله يسلمك طول عمرك خليك.